Namaste, pranams, and welcome to all of you. On behalf of Mount Madonna Center and Sankat Mochan Hanuman Temple, we're happy to have you join us, albeit virtually, for our Navaratri celebrations. And today, as you have noted, I'm sure, we have a very, very special event. Our dear friends from Ram Leela Media, Priya, Parameswaran, Paramesh, Gopi, Kaanchana, and Shankaran, the core essence singing group from Realms, and also we have Vivek, Datar on Harmonium and Ravi Gutala on Tabla. So this will be a special offering here, and it's really such a blessing to have them join us again. They've come many times and participated in different Ram Leela performances, often with a number of people and actors and so forth, and it's always an extraordinary experience for all of us who are touched by it. So this is, due to the pandemic, of course, a very pared down one. And we'll have some special things that will surprise you along the way. I think, especially in a couple of moments, you'll be introduced to Philip Lutgendorf, one of the most primary scholars of Ramayana in the Western world here. So without any further ado, I would like to again welcome you, and we'll go ahead and begin. Jai Sita Ram.
Jai Sitaram, Jai Hanuman.
Jai Sitaram.
So good morning, Philip Ji, and thank you so much for being so kind to accept the invitation to lead off today's Navaratri Sangeet, the Sundarkānd Satsang. You've spent a lot of your life dealing with the Rāmcaritmānas. So we thought it would be appropriate for us to have you kick off the program. You know, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and I'm sure that historians have recorded the pandemic during Tulsidas Ji's time, and he lived through a pandemic like we are. Is there anything that we can learn from his works about navigating our current situation?
Well, of course, in one of what may well be Tulsidas's last work, which is the Kavitavali, and then the so-called sequel to the Kavitavali, the Hanuman Bahuk, he writes explicitly about the plague, which we know was active in Benares, in Kashi, where Tulsidas lived, in around 1613, 1615, and thereabouts. It kept coming back. There were outbreaks over a number of years. And in Kavitavali, Tulsidas addresses a number of songs to Shiva, praying for the welfare of Kashi and the people of Kashi, and talking about the afflictions of the plague. And then, of course, Hanuman Bahuk, which is a wonderful text that I would encourage all Hanuman devotees to explore, is all about illness. It's all about a terrible neuralgic pain illness that Tulsidas in his old age seems to have had in his arms. And he really repeatedly calls on Hanuman to help him with that illness. And of course, it has been a strong belief over the centuries among Hanuman Bhaktas in North India that text is very powerful as a healing text, and is used for, anushtan, for ritual purposes to get over illnesses.
So speaking of Anushtan, it kind of leads me to my second question. Why is it that the Sundarkānd is the most ceremonially read chapter in the Manas?
Well, the why I'll come to in a minute. The fact that it is something that goes all the way back to the oldest written Ramayana, the Valmiki Ramayana. Already in the Valmiki Ramayana tradition, we find the Sundarkānd being singled out as special and as especially beloved to audiences. And one of the ways that scholars know this is that there are so many manuscripts of just the Sundarkānd from Valmiki. Not the whole Valmiki Ramayana, but just the Sundarkānd. It was evidently copied separately so that people could have their own copies. And obviously they wanted their own copies because they wanted to recite it, and probably, regularly and ritually. So the Sundarkānd has always had that special status. And the same thing happens with the Manas. After it is composed in roughly 1574, we find not just many, many manuscripts, over 1,000 early manuscripts of the Manas, but we find many, many manuscripts of just the Sundarkānd. And of course, nowadays you can go into a popular bookstore in India and buy a little printed Sundarkānd separately, all by itself. It's still sold that way. And intended especially for, Akhand Path, unbroken recitation, and various kinds of other uses that people have. Now, as to why, well, I think the obvious answer for especially your audience today is that it's the book that really has Hanuman front and center stage as the most important character. Hanuman and Sita, we might say. Two of the really most beloved characters in the Ramayana. And it's their book in which they interact with each other, give strength and hope to each other. Sita blesses Hanuman with immortality. Hanuman keeps her from literally killing herself, And so it's a very inspirational and uplifting book.
Wow. Okay. It's really interesting that you would say that, because this brings me to my next question, which is there anything special about the language and the poetry of the Sundarkānd in the Manas framework?
I would say so. First of all, no, in the sense that the whole Manas is of very high poetic quality, and it's pretty consistent throughout. And there's lots of amazing verses in every Kand. But one thing I have noticed, and you and I have actually talked about this before, is that I believe that the Sundarkānd contains the longest sentence in the Tulsi Manas. And it's really unusual because if you're a regular reader of Tulsidas, you'll know that almost every single chopai, every line in chopai meter is a complete sentence. And oftentimes just a half chopai makes a complete sentence. And then there's another complete sentence in the second half. So the sentences tend to be very short. There's very little instances of what literary scholars call enjambment, which is in poetry, it's when a thought is carried over into multiple lines of metrical poetry. But in the Sundarkānd, in stanza 21, when Hanuman is talking to Ravana, Ravana asks him a series of questions. Whose are you, monkey? Who sent you? Why did you kill my demons? And Hanuman's reply runs for 8 lines, and it's one sentence with a long string of relative clauses, and it's a brilliant sentence. And of course, we know that Hanuman is a master of grammar and a master of language. That's something you learn in Valmiki. And so he has the gift of eloquence, and he gives this wonderful, eloquent reply to Ravana. It begins, I'll just say, with chopai number 2. Sunuravana Brahmanda Nikaya Paija Subala Birachati Maya. And it goes on from there. And it's this whole series of he who did such and such, he who does this, does that, and finally ends up with the Doha, in which he identifies the he who as Ram. And this is who you're tangling with, and you better watch it. You better get with the program, Ravana, right?
Wow. That is quite, I mean, I think we're going to sing it today, but it's really interesting. I had no clue that, it's the enjambment that you talked about and how
Yeah.
the thought kind of goes through the entire list of all those sentences, right? That's amazing. Right. And
you don't get the verb until the last two lines.
Oh,
so
wow.
Every sentence has to have a subject and a verb, right? So yeah.
So it actually even is a big grammatical change there, right, compared to the rest of the Doha.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And so I'll kind of conclude this with some of your favorite verses. I mean, if you were to tell my children or other people in this time of pandemic and kind of, I'll call it a big spiritually testing time, what would be some of your favorite verses that we should reflect on every day?
Well, so there are two verses I'll start with that are regarded as very powerful. And back when I was doing my early research on Manas performance in the Benares area back in 1982, 83, one of the things that really delighted me was that I started realizing that there were Manas verses written on the side of trucks. And
wow.
Those public carrier trucks that have paintings of Shiva and Parvati on the front and lotuses and cows and all that sort of thing, and typically the sides had these two verses, and they're both from Sundarkānd. And the first one is Prabhisi Nagara ki je sabakaja hridaya raki ko salapura raja. Enter the city and accomplish all your tasks, holding in your heart Kosala kingdom's king. That is a blessing spoken by the demoness Lankani to Hanuman as he enters Lanka. And of course, it's good for trucks, right? Because it's when they get into cities is when they get into trouble in North India with traffic and police and et cetera. So it's a good thing for trucks. And then on the other side was written Dina Dayala Biridu Sambhari Harahunata Mama Sankata Bhari. Maintain your fame as merciful to the wretched and lift, Master, my heavy burden of affliction. Now that is spoken by Sita. And it's a message that she's asking Hanuman to deliver to Ram when he returns to Ram, and to take away my pain. And again, it's a good blessing for trucks and anybody else, I suppose. Another one, of course, very important verse is when Hanuman goes back to Ram and reports and delivers Sita's message. Ram says this, and it's a whole two-line chopai, so I'll read the whole thing. Sunu kapito hi samana upakari, nahi ko sura naramunita nudhari, prati upakara karon ka tora, sanamukha hoy nasakatama namora. Ram said, I have no benefactor like you, monkey, among embodied beings, gods, humans, or sages. What favor can I do for you in return? Before you, my mind can conceive of nothing.
Wow.
This is, of course, a verse of great significance to Hanuman devotees because in it, Ram declares that he is perpetually in debt to Hanuman and can never repay him for what he has done for him. Therefore, if you want to get something done by Ram, you go to Hanuman. And then let me jump ahead to getting 2/3 of the way through the Kand to the Doha number 43. And I'll end with this because it's of particular relevance today. Another very big scene in Sundarkānd is when Vibhishana comes and takes refuge in Ram, leaving his brother Ravana, having been rejected by Ravana because of giving good advice. And there's a debate among the monkeys as to whether they should trust him. He comes from Lanka, he's probably a spy, he's a Rakshasa, he's a bad being, And Sugriva presents the case against Vibhishana to Ram. And then Rama says, no, I have taken a vow to always accept those who come seeking asylum. And then he adds this doha, and I think it's particularly something we should think about today in this age of refugees of all kinds, and the many situations in the world that cause people to become refugees and the responses to refugees. So Rama says, Saranagata kahu jeta jahi Nija anahita anumani te narapavara papamaya tinha hi bilokatahani Siyapati Ram Jai Jai Ram. He says, those who abandon seekers of refuge, calculating their own potential loss, are the vilest of people, the lowest of people. Sinners, the very sight of whom is harmful.
Thank you so much.
Jai Sitaram, Jai Bajrangbali ki Jai Hanuman.
Thank you, Philip ji.
Om Shri Ananta Hari Narayana Om Shri Ananta Hari Narayana Om Shri Ananta Hari Hari Narayana, Hari Narayana. Kumbhavam samupeyushi bhagavati kim bharati rajate kim vasadana samhitam Ekava purnyanam saminde param Ityullikya savismayam kritadiyo dhyayanti yam bharati tirtasyasya jagatguro kushalada shripaduka me gati ajnanam jannavi tirtham vidyatirtham vivekinam Sarvesham sukadam tirtam Bharati tirtamashraye Vidya vinaya sampannam Vitaragam vivekinam Vande vedanta tattvajnam Vidushekara bharatim Vivekinam mahaprajnam Dhairyaudharya kshamanam Sada binavapurvantam Vidyatirtha gurum bhaje Srinatadi gurutrayam Ganapatim pitatrayam Bhairavam Siddhaugam Vatukatrayam Padayugam Bhutikramam Mandalam Virandvyashta Chatusha Shashti Navakam Veeravali Panchakam Shrimanmalini Mantra Rajasaitam Vande Guror Mandalam Sharadindu Vikasi Mandahasam Sfuratindi Varalochana Bhiramam Aravinda Samana Sundarasya Aravindasana Sundari Mupase Varnanam Artha Sanganam Rasanam Chandasamapi Mangalanam Chakartaro Vande Vani Vinayako Pujantam Rama Rameti Madhuram Madhuraksharam Aruhya Kavita Shakham Vande Valmiki Kokilam Udbhavastiti Samhara Karinim Kleshaharinim सर्वश्रेयस्करीं सीतां नतोऽहं रामवल्लभाम्। श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। श्री सीता लक्ष्मण भरत शत्रुघ्न हनुमत् समेत श्री रामचंद्र परब्रह्मणे नमः। We are very fortunate to be able to experience this satsang today in the midst of this pristine, beautiful temple where the prana forever blows and lives. As traditional, our first salutations are to the Guru, to Lord Mahaganapati, and to the entire Rama Parivara. In today's satsang, our goal is to meditate on one specific chapter of the Rāmcaritmānas and the Valmiki Ramayana, the Sundarkānd. As my mentor so beautifully said this, the Sundarakanda is unique because it stands as the Bija Kanda, or the seed Kanda of all Ramayanas. Any Ramayana, it stands as the seed. In it is revealed the entire story up to it and the story that comes past it. It is also recognized as being the linguistic, the syllabic and the mantric middle of all Ramayanas. And true to its name, it is Sundara. And it's so auspicious to do it during Navaratri because it's all about beauty. And its main deity is prana itself. It's the embodiment of prana in the form of Lord Hanuman. In today's satsang, we will try to have all of us, virtual and in person, meditate on the story and on our specific internal awareness as we move through the train of the story. So the goal of all sadhana, the goal of us coming to a temple, the goal of us attempting spiritual sadhana or attempting any sadhana is to derive joy. And the Ramayana is a tantra. It's actually the highest technique encoded in a story for us to be able to experience unbroken joy. If we consciously, intentionally experience the Sundarkānd as a story, but also as the mechanics of raising our awareness from the fear and survival part of our personality to the heart part of our personality, which radiates pure love, we would have succeeded in today's endeavor. So before we start, the Tantra encodes very specific quantities into character. We all live in a world that is enlivened by consciousness. And that consciousness in the Ramayana is none other than Sri Rama. In fact, in my mind, he is the Shiva of the Ramayana. If the world is one big conscious entity, our experience of the world is through our individual identity. That individual identity is Goddess Sita. Sarvashreyaskarim Sitam Natoham Rama Vallabham. They are inseparable. the third piece, when you go to a Rama temple or a Hanuman temple, you will see Sri Rama, Sita, Lakshmana and Hanuman. There's 4. The third persona is Lakshmana. And Lakshmana represents intent, focus, concentration. Lakshya, Lakshmi. And the 4th is the beautiful light ribbon that ties all of them together, is Lord Hanuman. And he represents prana. At the grossest form, prana is breath. At the most subtle form, it is the energy that actually rests in the attraction between Sita and Rama. Matter, which is all pervasive energy, energy which is all pervasive, and individuation of that energy. Therefore, this entire story is about getting to the state where the Rama Parivara manifests in us every time, every moment. And then you ask, who is Ravana? Well, we have created Ravana. We keep creating him. And it is the Maya Shakti, it is the Vikshepa Shakti of experience. When we become individuated, we experience the world through our sensory functions. The gross organs are the karmendriyas, the subtle organs are the jnanendriyas. For instance, hearing, well, that is the sense of hearing, which is impinged on by the physics of sound. So therefore, that he has 10 heads representing the 10 aspects of sensory experience. And if you look at Ravana's past, it's not all bad. He's actually a Brahmana who was the son of a rishi. So Pulastya's grandson. So in this beautiful Sundarakanda is the interplay between our individual identity, the all-pervasive consciousness, our breath and all of the associated functions of experience, and of course, Ravana, who represents complete sensory externalization. So how does the Ramayana start? It starts with an abduction. And it starts with the abduction of our awareness. There is so much to learn from the Aranyakanda, because in the Aranyakanda, in Panchavati, when there is equipoise, there is Rama and Sita and Lakshmana, they've been banished to the forest. Consciousness, mind, and individuality are at complete rest. And then something happens. And the wheel of externalization gets kicked into motion. And Rishi Valmiki intended it for us to experience ourselves. So we start with the abduction. Ravana, the trickster, plans a very elaborate scheme, and he engages Maricha, the one who deludes sense, to assume the form of a deer and entice our ahamkara, our Sita. All of them are in the heart chakra. By the way, if you're familiar with the Shat Chakra Nirupana or the chakra system, the animal associated with the heart chakra is a deer. So it's completely consistent. Sita longs for the golden deer, and she sends Lakshmana out, and then there is illusion because the mind is gone, it's no longer aware and focused inward. And then guess what? Consciousness always flows where ahamkara, where the Sita within us tells us to flow. And she says, Rama, go! Go! Lakshmana, go! And there's always the notion of go. So the mind follows. And guess what? Universal consciousness just follows. You give it a vessel, it just goes. And look at Sri Rama. He can never be destroyed. But the illusion in Sita's mind is, oh my God, Lakshmana, he's going to be destroyed. Go! And so the mind is gone. Consciousness is everywhere. Sri Rama is everywhere. When the mind leaves, then guess what happens? Your entire sense of self is now susceptible to attack by prarabdha, by karma, by all of the projections that you make that are unreal. And so the trickster moves in. And he moves in as who? As a saintly sannyasi, just the opposite of what he actually is. There's no 10 heads. There's an ogre robe, and he sits there and he says, "Oh mother, please, please, please give me some alms." And this beautiful Devi Sita lets Ravana in. And when that happens, everything starts. Time starts to unlock. Prana starts to manifest. All events that are causal start to occur. It's a very beautiful Charukesi Drupad verse that we'll sing for us to meditate on that moment when Rama has left and Sita is alone with the trickster comes in and the abduction is brutal. He grabs Sita with no regard to body or to any type of propriety. He takes her, disrobes her almost, and carries her away into the sky. Have you noticed awareness? When you lose it, you really lose it. And when you lose it, it happens at the most subtle part of your personality. Go back and rewind when you get angry, or when you get into a tantrum state, or into a fear state. It just happens like that. Krodhavanta tabaravana tinistaka bhaykai Chala jana pada atura bhayarata hankina jai Siyavara Ramachandra ki jai Siyavara Ramachandra ki jai Siyavara Ramachandra ki jai. And in that moment, as he lifts her up, Jatayu, again, all of the wind, all of the pranas, creatures that actually try to rein in the prana, constantly show up. Jatayu, Sampati, and he destroys every single intervention. These are all second and third order interventions. But when the sense master has taken control, you're done. The mind is gone, consciousness is everywhere, but you don't have the ability to cognize. And then starts the Sundarkānd. So when we do the part today, we'll start with the invocation, and through the entire invocation and the first part of the Kand, when Hanuman takes the leap of faith, please focus all of your energies as you breathe on the spot around your navel. And if possible, please hold this mudra. So your middle finger represents the fire element. Your thumb represents the space element. You're bridging fire and space. So since the digestive fire all of your second brain is in your gut. The entire Sankalpa, the resolve to meditate on Lord Hanuman begins with this chakra. So as we do the invocation, please focus the awareness on the navel. Nanya Spriha Raghupate Hridaye Smadhiye Satyam Vadami Cha Bhavan Akhilantaratma Bhaktim Prayacha Rahukundavani Bharame Kamadidosharahikam Kurumanasam Cha Om Sri Sita Lakshmana Bharata Shatrughna Hanumat Sameta Shri Rāmchandra Parabrahmane Namaha. Atulita Baladamam Hema Shailabhadeham Tanujavana Krishanum Jnaninam Agraganyam Sakala Guna Nidhanam Vanaramadhisham Raghupati Priya Bhaktam Vatajatam Namami Vatajatam Namami Mangalamurati Mārutī Mangalamurati Mārutī Sakala Amangalamulani Kandana Sakala Amangalamulani Kandana Mangalamurati Mārutī Mangalamurati Pavanataya Santanahitakari Pavanataya Santanahitakari Hridaya Virajata Avadha Vihari Hridaya Virajata Avadha Vihari Mandau Rama Lakshmana Bedehi Mandau Rama Lakshmana Bedehi Jai Tulasi ke Pavan Sanehi Jai Tulasi ke Pavan Sanehi Mangalamurati Mārutī Mangalamurati Mārutī Sakala Amangalamulani Kandana Mangalamurati Mārutī Om Pavanasuta Hanuman ki jai Siyavar Rāmchandra ki jai. Sundarkānd's invocation in the Rāmcaritmānas is so clearly connected to a tantra. Nanya Spriha Raghupate Hridaye Smadhiye Satyam Vadami Cha Bhavan Akhilantaratma. I cognize, O great Lord of the Raghu's Supreme Paramatman, embodiment of all that is pervasive consciousness. Please grant us the resolve to bring our awareness in line with you, its source. May we return to our state of equipoise. And then, of course, Tulsi Das ji is so adept at bringing the technique. How do we do that? We salute the Lord of Prana, Atulita Baladamam, the dearest among Rama's devotees. Hema Shailabha Deham, one who is splendorous, like a mountain of gold. Jnaninam agraganyam, as they say in the Advaita Siddhanta, Jnanam mokshaika karanam. Only with knowledge can you achieve liberation. Hanuman is Navavyakarana Nipuna Navavidanta Karana Navavyakarana Nipuna Navavidanta Karana Jai. He is not only adept at language and its constructs, he is also adept at expressing himself. And all that he talks about through the entire Ramayana is all jnanam. He is the ultimate jnani. Now let us go and join Sugriva's armies at the shore on the southern tip of India, modern day Rameshwaram. It's actually now, you're actually still focused on your navel. The Rameshwaram within you is your navel. And through all of the Kishkinda Kanda, where Rama enlists and becomes close to the Vanaras, we find that there are crucial clues to Sita's location. Armies are sent out to all the different corners of that particular world, but then the corner that has the biggest signal to where Sita is the southern corner of the country. And so guess who's sent there? Well, it's Angada, Crown Prince, Hanuman, Jambavan, the greatest of all the Vanaras, the oldest. In fact, Jambavan actually has a very esoteric meaning. It actually has to do with a star that has survived many, many, many light years of existence. So Jambavan is the eternal historian. He's one of the embodied light. He's one of the embodied light bodies that has been witness to everything, and he lands up being there to remind Hanuman of his true nature. At this point in time, Hanuman has been cursed because of his childhood pranks to forget his true nature, with the vouchsafed promise that he will remember it at the time when it is required. So I want to take you there. And Angada, who is the leader, who is the crown prince, Sugriva's nephew, is completely in command. And he assumes the role of commander-in-chief of that particular phalanx. And he says, we know that Sita is there. We've got enough clues between Jatayu, between Sampati, who has given us telescopic vision to recognize a life form that resembles Sita in Lanka. Now we just need to figure out and confirm that she is indeed there, so that we can take evidence back to Lord Sri Rama, so that he can come and basically take care of business. And in order to do that, we need a reconnaissance man. And so this entire chapter is about reconnaissance for ourselves. If we even think of the start of the Sundarakandam, we realize that it's our first way to understand ourselves and go inward. And so what ends up happening is there's a challenge, and Angada shouts out to all of the Vanaras assembled. All of you who are here today assembled, we are now certain that Mother Sita is on the other side of this strait. Who amongst you has the capability to jump 100 yojanas and come back 100 yojanas to ascertain that and to let us tell Sri Rama that indeed we have information that is valid so we can move on Ravana? And this entire Vanara army, there's chatter, there's so much commotion, but there's no outcome. And so he's so frustrated, he says, I'm done. I'm going to go myself, fully knowing well that he can't make the trip back. And of course, when you have a leader who's that charismatic, who's that energetic, and who wants to do it, obviously everybody says, victory to Prince Angada, victory to Prince Angada, let's send him off. The old wise man, who's seen many light years, stops this. And he moves in front of Angada's field of vision, close to Hanuman, who's sitting dejected on the beach. Hanuman is a part of the command, but he's really not engaged in these conversations. And let's now go to Jambavan's point of view as he instructs Angada.
रहा प्रथम बललेसा जब ही त्रिविक्रम भये करारी तब मैं करुण रहे बल भारी बलि बांधत प्रभु बाढ़े सोदनु बरनि न जाई उभय गरी महदीनी सात प्रदक्षिण दाई हरि 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 नारायण हरि 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 नारायण हरि 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 नारायण.
Prince, stop! There's ashen silence. And Angada looks at this old man and there's a little bit of arrogance in him. And he says to Jambavan, how dare you, Mr. Elder, how dare you sit here and tell me that I shouldn't fulfill the mission that I'm asking my troops to fulfill? And as with every leadership lesson that we learn from the Ramayana, Angada fails to take input. He assumes that Jambavan, because of his age and his relative physical inability, has nothing to offer. And so Jambavan looks at this young man and he says, are you able to jump the straight back? Oh yeah, I didn't think about that. There's so much bravado and there's no thought process. And so that's the first thing he does. He disarms Prince Angada because he said, you're going to go on a suicide mission. Are you thinking? And of course, Hanuman is sitting there looking at the waves. And then Angada, in his classic CEO style, looks at Jambavan and asks him, well, old man, if I'm not going to do it, who's going to do it? We got to get this done, right? Who's going to give Rama positive affirmation that Sita is well? And he says, well, Prince, things will happen even without your CEO-ship. And there is a way. And he looks at Hanuman and he says, Anjaneya. Hanuman says, ha, me? I'm just this really good minister. I have a few tricks up my sleeve. I can change form. You know, I'm a good ambassador.
So humble.
So humble, always humble. In fact, big lesson, always throughout Hanuman's entire story is his humility. That's why he's so powerful. And of course, Jambavan is the guru. And he says, come here. You really don't know who you are you? He says, no, I'm the son of Anjana and Kesari. And yes, I'm Sugriva's minister. He says, no, come here. He takes his thumb and he puts it on Hanuman's forehead and he awakens Hanuman to his true identity. And to celebrate that, we will sing the most auspicious Anuvaka from the Rudram. Om Namah Somaya Cha Rudraya Cha Namah Shamraya Cha Arunaya Cha Namah Shringaya Cha Pashupataye Cha Namah Ugraya Cha Bhimaya Cha Namo Agre Vadaya Cha Dure Vadaya Cha Namo Hantre Cha Haniyase Cha Namo Vikshebhyo Harikeshebhyo Namastaraya Namah Shambhave Cha Mayo Bhave Cha Namah Shankaraya Cha Mayaskaraya Cha Namah Shivaya Cha Shivataraya Cha Namastityaya Cha Kulyaya Cha Namah Bharyaya Cha Varyaya Cha Prataranaaya Cha Uttaranaya Cha Namo Adharyaya Cha Ladhyaya Cha Namah Shashpyaya Cha Penyaya Cha Namah Sikatyaya Cha Pravahyaya Cha Shankara Bhandare Bola Shankara Bhandare Bola Parachandra Shobhe Mastaka Parachandra Shobhe Angana Me Bhasmaraga Angana Me Bhasmaraga Nalvi Gana Sangatore Nalvi Gana Sangatore Shankara Bhandare Bol Shankara Bhandare Bol Mundana ki mala saaj becomes like lightning. Dear Jambavan, sire, you have removed the veil that separated me from my true self. By the grace of Sri Rama, I can uproot the Trikuta hill, which is the center stone of prana in Lanka. I can take Lanka, its mansions, its asuras, its daityas, its population, and hurl the entire landmass into space. O great sire, O Guru, who has awakened me to myself, what is your command? It happens in a flash. This Guru Tattva is so important, which is why when we do satsang, everywhere, we always pray to the Guru Tattva, because the Guru Tattva is the first principle that removes our notion of limited self.
Ego.
And so Jambavan is ecstatic, the Vanaras are ebullient, Angada is doing this, and Hanuman is ever so humble. Every second word that comes out of his mouth is Ram, 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 Ram,
Jai Siya Ram, Jai.
Hey Siya Ram. Sire, what is your command? Jambavan smiles and he says, oh, beautiful, beautiful Kandarpa Koti Lavanya Anjaneya. Because he sees Shiva, he sees none other than Lord Parameshwara in front of him. Hanuman is an Amsha of Lord Parameshwara, which is why he always stays behind the scenes and just flows. And he says, Hanuman, here is Sri Rama's signet ring. And Hanuman holds the ring. The ring is glowing with Rama's energy. Take this ring, jump the strait, get to Lanka, give this to Mother Sita, come back with an affirmation that she is well, so that we can tell Sri Rama that we can move and bring her back and unite her with him. Hanuman says, absolutely, sire. Let me go now. So there's a very beautiful shloka that Hanuman Bhaktas and my mentor always tells me about. He says, Ajadyam, Ajadyam, Ajadyam Vakpadutvancha. Hanuman never, he's always moving, he's always acting. There's no laziness, there's no tamas, there's no inertia. Inertia is stopped, zero. And Hanuman lifts off the mountain. Now, where are we going to lift off of? You're in your navel. Next comes the treacherous strait. And it's probably good for us to talk for 1 minute about the Swadhisthana Chakra. Between your navel and your tailbone, which includes your excretory system, lies the most important system, one of the most important energetic centers of your body. It houses all your fundamental instincts of duality. It is why brahmacharya is recommended for people who want to become sannyasis or who want to become realized with the ultimate consciousness. Because the number one impulse that every human being, that every being is given when you embody yourself in this frame is procreative. Your first instinct is to procreate your legacy, yourself, in a different frame. Therefore, this jump in the Purana is actually a jump to take your awareness past the procreative center and kindle the very root of your identity. All of our identity lies in the Mooladhara Chakra. The sound for the Mooladhara Chakra is Lam, and that is Ravana's capital, Lamka. Our individuality, if you look at an embryo, go to an embryologist, the first thing that forms is the tailbone, the coccyx in the tailbone. All of the nerves that innervate the coccyx hold the fundamental impulse to survive. Your taste, your nostrils, all of your somatic complex is tied into the Mooladhara Chakra. Rase, Rupe, Cha, Gandhe, Cha, Rupini. Right? That's in the Sahasranamam.
In the Saptashati.
In the Saptashati. Navaratri, sorry.
Rasa, Rupa, Gandha,
Yes.
Sparsha.
Yeah.
And, all the 5.
Therefore, when we take this jump, you're going to have to, this is a very beautiful, beautiful exercise. Focus your energy as you go through this particular story. Focus your energy in your reproductive complex. And the mudra for that is this. It's this finger, it's the ring finger, it's Vam, right? Now recognize one thing. Sri Rama gave Jambavan to give to Sita a signet ring. And I want to be clear, it's a signet ring. Guess where sovereigns wear their signet rings? They wear their signet rings on this finger, so that on your pointing finger, because they have to mudra, they have to stamp things with their signet.
Index, yeah.
And this is the space, this is the air element, the prana element. Look at the beautiful symbolism. The signet ring represents prana. Who is it given to? It is given to Hanuman, who is the lord of prana, to keep. And where is it going to go? It's going to go all the way down to Lanka, which has your awareness bound by Ravana, and tell you that you're beyond Lanka. You have to come to the heart with me. So the tantra is perfect in the Ramayana. Rishi Valmiki was the greatest tantric that ever lived. And so now let us take the leap. Are you ready? 1, 2.
सिंधु तीर एक भूधर सुंदर कौतुक कूदी चले काऊ पर बार बार रघुबीर संभारी करके पवन तनय बलबारी सिंधु तीर एक भूधर सुंदर कौतुक कूदी चले काऊ पर बार बार रघुबीर संभारी करके पवन तनय बलबारी राम 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 Rama 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 Rama.
And Hanuman hits his first obstacle. The horizon starts to melt, and a giant form that is snake-like and black emerges from the water, and in a commanding voice, "Stop, Vanara!" Hanuman floats. The voice continues, "You will now be my meal." Mother? Me? I have to go on a mission to Sri Lanka. I have to go on XYZ, YZT. He gives her the entire history of why he's there. Totally truthful, totally honest. No redactions. I don't care. The Devas have given me a boon that all objects that cross this particular chakra will become my food. So there is no way you can get past me. Look at the horizon. I span every part of your visual field. Vanara,
In the straight.
you cannot get past me unless you enter me. And her name is Surasa. So for anybody who understands the Sanskritam or Hindi, Ras means taste. Surasa means very, very high taste.
Yeah.
So as you go down to this chakra and you move your awareness here, your sense of taste gets very heightened.
Actually, the forerunner in all the sensory experiences.
Yeah, and in fact, Priya's right. It's the forerunner of all sensory experience. You know, when you taste a piece of chocolate or when you taste a good espresso, you can unlock a lot with that taste. And so Hanuman stands here in front of this giant ogress. She's actually a Naga. And she's actually very beautiful in a very bizarre way.
Supposed to tempt, right?
And Hanuman says, "But mother, I have to go. Time is of the essence. I've got to get back within the day. I've got this mission to complete." Absolutely not. Enter me, Vanara, or perish. And so Hanuman does what most corporate executives, and I particularly think about Andy Grove because I've read a lot of his books, ex-Intel guy. I'm an old guy in the semiconductor industry. Andy used to say, when you're confronted with a problem, take a walk around the building. Get away from it. And in his mind, in his intelligence, Navavya Karana Nipuna Navavidanta Karana, his intelligence is so high. Jnaninam Agraganyam. In that moment, he does the walk and he comes back and he says, okay, mother, I understand. He's the greatest of yogis. But mother, your mouth, you may be big, but your mouth is so small. I can't fit through. I'm at least a yojana and a half. Oh, really? Is that all it takes? I'm going to open it wider. He says, wider, mother. Wider, mother. The horizon starts to open up and open up. Her mouth becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And in a flash, in one instant, he minimizes himself to the size of an atom. He enters Surasa's mouth and he flies out through her ear in one instant. And he does this to her.
I entered you, and that was the.
And he says, it's done, Mom. I entered you. Amma, I've entered you and I've exited you. And it says that the esoteric meaning behind that is prana is so, he is prana itself. So when you don't negate taste, when you experience taste without storing it and making it an impression, then that experience is complete. Because in that experience is Rama, Sita and Hanuman.
There's no attachment.
There's no attachment. There's no, I need to do this, live, die, repeat, live, die, repeat, live, die, repeat cycle.
Yeah.
And she immediately collapses into a beautiful devata and she blesses Hanuman. She says, "Oh Anjaneya, go forth. May your mission be successful." And now we will sing the Rāmcaritmānas Doha. Focus again on the reproductive complex.
जस जस सुरसा भगनु बढ़ावा तासु दून कपि रूप दिखावा सत जो जन तेहि आनन कीना अति लघु रूप पवन सुत लीन बदनु वै मुनि बाहेर आवा मागा विगाता ही सिरुनावा मोहि सुरन जेहि लागी पटावा मुनि बद मन मुतोर में पावा राम 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 राम
Jai Siya Ram.
Jai Sita Ram.
Jai Hanuman.
Not yet over, not yet crossed the strait. Just as soon as he's flying across the strait, if you ever want to see amazing visual writing, you should read the Valmiki Ramayana, where Valmiki speaks about the winds that tunnel through Hanuman's armpits as he flies at sonic speeds across the ocean. He even talks about, forget modern movie making. It's so brilliantly written that you can actually feel the howl of the wind through Hanuman's armpits as he speeds across the ocean and the water rises up.
Wow.
So for all the modern special effects aficionados, you can actually see the water rising up as Hanuman flies across the strait. And then comes the world of shadow. As Hanuman flies, he starts to lose altitude. It's like almost something's pulling him down. And Hanuman is strong. He's the ultimate yogi. He actually is he's actually so wedded to Ram. His energy and Ram's energy are almost one. Ramarupi Antaratma. But even he feels like he's magnetically being drawn towards the water. And he says, well, what's going on with my shadow? The sun is up and my shadow is shrinking. And the shadow shrinks and shrinks and shrinks until it becomes a dot. And when it becomes a dot, Hanuman freezes on top of the sheet of water.
Wow.
Imagine him freezes on top of the sheet of water with his gada. He says, my God, I feel like my own strength is being used against me. And then comes the monster that lives in the deepest part of our subconscious. And her name is Simhika.
Nisi निशिचरियेक सिंधु महुरहये निशिचरियेक सिंधु महुरहये करिमाया न भूखे खग गई करिमाया न भूखे खग गई जीव जंतु जे गगन उड़ाई जीव जंतु जे गगन उड़ाई जन बिलो की तिनके परिछाई जन बिलो की तिनके परिछाई गए चाह सक सोन उड़ाई यही विधि सदा गगन चरखाई सोई चल क्यों कही कीन्हा सोई चल हनुमान कही कीन्हा दासु कपटु कपि तुर दई चीन्हा राम 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 राम
Think of your deepest instincts, your deepest weaknesses, and your judgment. If I put something in front of you, psychologists have established this, many experiments at Stanford and at CMU. If I put something in front of you, it's an object. If it's a piece of metal, if you were to just recognize it, there is a particular electrical signal that is associated with the recognition in your brain that gets fired. However, within less than probably 2 seconds, your whole brain lights up. And that's because judgment dawns on anything. And where judgment is stored is a function of our previous impression energies, our prarabdha, and our reproductive center. They're all linked. And so when Hanuman experiences his own strength in the negative with Simhika, he actually is dealing with a shadow of himself. And in that one moment, he descends into the water, into the vortex of the water. And because he invokes with the biggest yell, Ram, the word Ram shatters the shadow. In fact, Valmiki says he tears the demon apart while he says Ram. So Ram, the word Ram, is a very powerful mantra. It has Shakti, it has Ra, which is the Bijam of Rajas, it has A, which is the Shakti Bijam, and it has Ma, which is the Bijam of Maheshwara, which is the destructive. It's the most unique combination of the fundamental Bijas to produce nothing but pure spirit. वर रामचंद्र की जय सियावर रामचंद्र की जय सियावर रामचंद्र की जय. Hanuman comes out and he speaks from the Adhyatma Ramayana. Deha buddhya tvaddāsoham Deha buddhya tvaddāsoham Jiva buddhya tvaddam shakam Atma buddhya Tvamevaham iti Siyavara Ramachandra ki jai. When I identify myself with this body, O Lord Rama, I am your servant. The Aghori Vimalananda had a beautiful quote: be God's dog. It's just been ringing in my head. Be God's dog. Jiva buddhyat tvadamshakaha. You're like a light bulb. There's energy running through you. When you identify with the energy in body running through you, the individual energetic being, I understand that I am a spark. It's the same, it's like the droplet. Rumi's, the ocean is contained in every drop.
All the secrets of the ocean.
All the secrets of the ocean are in one drop.
Of the ocean. So Hanuman says.
And then the final verse, the final line that Swami Vivekananda used to quote all the time. Atma buddhya tvamevaham. When I expand my awareness, what does that mean? When I am aware that the energy in me is the energy that runs the universe, then there is no delta, there's no difference in energy. Therefore, I cease, the big I ceases to exist, which is the cornerstone of Advaita Siddhanta. So,
he says,
when I expand my awareness beyond my sense of identity, then, O Lord Rama, you and I are one. And it was not until Vivek tuned Bhimarupi, and when he tuned the Yaman in the end, we'll sing that one line. Ramadasu agraganyu kapikulasi mandanu. The first line is all of the first two. Ramarupi antaratma darshane doshanasati. It didn't strike me until this reading.
Hanuman is Ramarupi.
Hanuman is indeed Rama and Rama is indeed Hanuman. Hanuman is in Rama's heart, Rama is in Hanuman's heart. Shivascha Hridayam Vishnu, Vishnuscha Hridayam Shiva. They are inseparable. Hari and Hara are inseparable. And with that, the hero of the Sundarakanda, Prana,
Go back to our story.
flies beautifully. The sun is setting, and I wish we were doing a Ram Leela in a theater or making a movie, because
with the entire mandali, with the glorious
between Tulsidas ji's description
team,
and Valmiki,
actors.
think of the most beautiful tropical sunset. And now you're moving your energy now towards the base of your spine, at the rectal plexus. Lanka glistened like a jewel as the sun set over its waters. And our hero circled the island. Prana is circling, this light body is circling the island as dusk fell. And Tulsidas ji's description is phenomenal. Ram 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 Kanakakota Vichitramani Krita Sundarayatana Ghana Kanakakota
Vichitramani krita sundarayatana
Ghana Chauhata Hata Subhata Bhiti Charupura Bahuvidhi Bana Chauhata Hata Subhata Bhiti Charupura Bahuvidhi Bana
Gajabaji Kaanchana निकर पद चर रथ परुतन भोग नहीं गजबाजी कचर निकर पद चर रथ भरुतन भोग नहीं
बहुरूप निशिचर जूत अति बल सेन
भरन नहीं बने
बहुरूप निशिचर जूत
अति बल सेन भरन नहीं बने
सूक्ष्म रूप धरिसि अहि दिखावा
निकट रूप धरि रंग जरावा भीम रूप धरि असुर संहारे रामचंद्र के काज संभाले जय हनुमान अति बलवान जय हनुमान अति बलवान जय हनुमान अति बलवान
जय हनुमान
अति
Kanaka Kota Vichitra Mani Krita starts off with beauty. Kanaka, it's glowing like gold. It's said that the base chakra is all red and gold when you visualize the colors for it. Mani Krita, the turrets and the spires, the light is glistening off of those beautiful buildings in Lanka. Sundara Yatana Ghana. There are 7 verses in the Sundarakandam which say Sundara. And they are all for the 7 states of awareness. 6 here and 1 high. 6 chakras. We're at 5:30. Oh, we're almost done. As soon as Hanuman lands, the first person that he encounters is the guardian deity for the city of Lanka, and her name is Lankini. She makes very quick work of Lankini. Tulsidas, she says it's one blow and Lankini is done. So let's celebrate Lankini's defeat and Hanuman's entry.
मसक समान रूप कपि धरी रंगई चलयु सुमिर नर हरि नाम लंकिनी एक निशिचरी सो कह चले सि मोहिनी धरी जय सिया राम जय जय सिया राम 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 जन ही नहीं मरमु सत मोरा मोर आहार जहाँ लगी चोरा मुठी का एक महाकवि हनी रुधिर भमद धरणी धन मनी जय सिया राम जय जय सिया राम जय सिया राम जय जय सिया राम जय सिया राम जय जय सिया राम जय सिया राम जय जय सिया राम
बोलो सियावर रामचंद्र की
जय
So at the base of the spine is the Mooladhara chakra. Your awareness should now be there. Hanuman, with the help of Vibhishana, is going to find the whereabouts of Sita. Tulsidas Ji's Ramayana is very clear. Prana always gravitates towards sattva, towards high energy and expansiveness. Therefore, through Vibhishana's help, he meets up with Vibhishana because in all of Lanka, Tulsidas Ji says there's only one house with Sri Rama's bow and arrow that are painted on its ramparts. So Hanuman goes in. He's able to reconnaissance with Vibhishana, who tells him the location of Sita. And now it's the morning, early morning. Hanuman landed at night. And Ravana and his troops. Ravana always travels in an entourage, like a presidential entourage. He's got cars, people, trumpets. And he's partied all night. And he walks into the Ashokavana. Wake up, beautiful Sita. Wake up, my dear, beautiful queen. Take my hand. My throne awaits you. Look, I've brought all my queens with me in tow. They will be your handmaids. I have been doing this for every single day for this past month. Please, Janaki, please look into my eyes. And Sita never looks at Ravana. She doesn't even honor. Because the sense of dissonance between your true self and Rama, which is all-pervasive consciousness, is so pronounced when you know that you're caught. Even when you're angry, when that insight comes to you, you're like, oh my God, what am I doing here? What am I doing in this state? She takes a blade of grass, throws it on the ground. Ponder this fool, she says. She thunders. Can a lotus ever bloom in the glow of a firefly? My Rama shafts of light will destroy you and your entire demon clan. Lanka will sink. And Sita is no wallflower. Let me be very clear. She is Shakti. She has power. She has the ability to control people's mind. And for that moment, Ravana is stunned. It takes him a moment. And then the sense master says, how dare you insult me? Arrogance stems up. How dare you cast words that are unkind to me, who have offered you the queenship of this universe? Look at this sword! And he flashes Lord Shiva's scimitar in front of Sita's neck. And Ravana is so close to her now, she can smell his breath. The sword is raised. And look at Sita, she just deftly moves and she addresses the sword. Syam saroja dama sundara dama samasundara dama saroja dama samasundara Prabhu puja kari kara samadasa kara Prabhu puja kari kara samadasa kara so bhuja kantha ki tava asi gora so bhuja kantha ki tava asi gora sunu satha sasa pravana panamora sunu satha sasa pravana panamora chandrahasa haru mama paritapam chandrahasa haru mama paritapam Raghupati Piraha Anala Sanjatam Raghupati Piraha Anala Sanjatam Sita Nani Sita Bahasi Bharadhara Sita Nani Sita Bahasi Bharadhara Kaha Sita Jai Siya Ram, Jai Jai Siya Ram, 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 Jai Siya Ram, Jai Jai Siya Ram. Bolo Siyavara Ramchandra ki Jai, Jai Bajrangavali ki Jai. She addresses the sword. Chandrahasa, rid me of my suffering. Take this head off. This head will only rest in the arms that are blue and beautiful like the lotus of my husband Rama. And they will not rest anywhere else. So, behead me. Let me unite in spirit with my Raghava. Ravana is enraged. At this point in time, all bets are off. And look at
Bhartaram mamanichadi mama tvam pradarshashartham abhavate mahanase.
I am done with this. I am done with you, Sita. I give you 30 days. If you decide that you don't want to snap out of this fantasy and join me in my bed, I will have my cooks serve you up as breakfast. There is ashen silence in the Ashokavana. And as Ravana walks away, an afterthought. Rakshasis! Take this woman, mentally break her, and make sure that she has nothing left to hang on to. Don't kill her, but make sure you break her. And he just storms off. His entire entourage, his queens, whole 9 yards. This is the darkest of nights for Sita. The Rakshasis scream and howl, and sound has a very weird effect on you. In fact, if you try living in a noisy place with trains, or if you try living in a noisy place with so much crowd noise, you actually go insane. So they use sound as a ploy to try to drive Sita insane, to break her mind. It's almost like a prison. Well, the night goes on and Sita is in meditation. She has nothing but intention and thought on her Rama, on Supreme Consciousness. And witness to all of this is this tiny, tiny Hanuman on top of a branch. At one point in time, when the noise gets so bad, Hanuman says, "Oh my God, I can't deal with this. She's in so much pain. I'm sitting here, I'm doing nothing." Again, the prana is waiting to go convey the message that I'm here. Maybe I should go down now. Maybe I should drop this ring. And then all of a sudden, at 3 a.m. in the morning, sometime very early, one Rakshasi wakes up with a howl. And her howl stops all the din. And this is Trijata. She has a vivid dream. And in that dream is the second part of the Ramayana. We will now sing Trijata's dream for you.
Lanka drushta maya swapne Ravanena bhirakshita Dadha Ramasya dutena Vanarena tarasvina Dadha Ramasya dutena
Stop, fools! Stop the noise. Stop the torment. Lanka is about to be destroyed. Ravana, I've seen Ravana, his face ashen with blood, being drawn to the netherworlds in a chariot with 4 black horses. Oh my God, there is fire everywhere. Unborn fetuses scream from the wombs of their mothers. The smell, the sound, I can't bear it. Sita is transfixed. I must go and inform my queen Mandodari of the impending apocalypse. Stop! Don't do anything to her. Stop, everybody. In that moment, the first tipping point of the Ramayana occurs. Sita gets up. She holds Trijata's hands. Mother Trijata, you have given me hope in my most despondent of nights. You have kindled the vision of Raghava in Lanka for me. Please, help me build a fire. I can't bear this separation any longer. Help me build a fire so I may jump into it and be with my Raghava now. There is so much dissonance when your true sense of being is separated from joy. You feel it, which is why you always seek joy. You are the Sita every moment in this pandemic. You are the Sita every time you feel like you've not seen a friend. You are in that state of your entire awareness being locked up by your sensory complex. And Trijata runs off. All of the Rakshasis skedaddle. They're done. They move on. And then Hanuman starts. Dandaka Vanajana Pavana Ram Dushta Virada Vinashana Ram Dannabhanga Sudikshna Archita Ram Agasyanugra Vardita Ram Gridvadipa Samsevita Ram Panchavati Tata Sustita Ram Shurpanaka Dividayaka Ram Kharadushanam Sudakaram Sita Priya Marinanugaram Marichadikrita Shukaram Vinashta Sitan Veshakaram Gridradipagati Dayakaram Shabari Datta Palashanaram Gavandava Uchedanaram Rama Rama Jaya Raja Ram Rama Rama Jaya Sita Ram Rama Rama Jaya Raja Ram Rama Rama Jaya Sita Ram. Who speaks of my husband? Who speaks of my dear Raghupati? Show yourself. Why do you hide? Hanuman doesn't have the words. He's spoken the Ramayanam all the way to here. He's talked about Dandaka Vanajana, the times in Dandaka forest, Rushta Virada Vinat. Sita's entire mental state is transformed as she hears about Panchavati, the time in equipoise. He picks so beautifully to start there. Then he has no words. So he just drops the ring. And the ring is like a flare. It just drops into Sita's hand as she's looking down at her hands. And then Tulsidas ji so beautifully in the Rāmcaritmānas describes this event, the geometric center of the Ramayana. Kapi kar hridaya bichare dinhi mudrika dari kab janu asok angar dini harashi uthi kar gaye जब देखी मुद्रिका मनोहर राम नाम अंकित अति सुंदर चकित चित मुदरी हर्ष विषाद हृदय कुरारे राम दुआरे तुम रखवारे होतन आज्ञा बिनु पैसा राम दुआरे तुम रखवारे होतन आज्ञा बिनु पैसा सब सुख रहे तुम्हारी सरना तुम रक्षक काहू को डरना आपन तेज समारो आप तीनों लोक आगते कापे भूत पिशाच निकट नहीं आवे महावीर जब नाम सुनावे महावीर जब नाम सुनावे महावीर जब नाम सुनावे जय हनुमान अति बलवंत 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 सियावर रामचंद्र की जय। Sita is overwhelmed with emotion. There's tears that flow. And this little beautiful Hanuman glides down. He doesn't want to show Sita his full yogic form. He comes as a little, beautiful little monkey, 3.5, 4 feet. And he says, Ram, Ram, Ram. And in that moment, Sita looks at him and she says, who are you? Who is this? Who are you? He says, I am Anjaneya. Mother, I have come with tidings from Lord Sri Ramachandra. Sita wants to hug him, but she's still just a tad aware that she doesn't know whether this is one of Ravana's tricks. And so she says, Anjaneya, you have given me solace in my most dark moment. How is my Rama? How is my Lakshmana? Hanuman has no time for this. He says, Mother, I can't bear to see you like this. Jump on my back so that I may take you across the strait and reunite you with your husband. I can't bear to see this separation. And in that one moment, Sita, in that one moment,
It's low power mode.
your thing is on.
I don't know why it's on. It's my low power mode turned on. Just keep going.
In that one moment, Sita feels all of the joy that she felt when she was united with Sri Rama at Panchavati. Anjaneya, you speak big words, but you're so small. How do you propose to take me across the strait, to bear my entire weight? You're a little monkey. Your mind must be playing tricks on you. Please, Anjaneya, please don't play with me. And at this point in time, Hanuman says, Siyavara Ramachandra ki jai, Siyavara Ramachandra ki jai, Siyavara Ramachandra ki jai, Siyavara Ramachandra ki jai. Ashta Siddhi Navanidhi ke Data, Asavara Deena Janaki Mata, Ram Rasayana Tumare Pasa, Sadhara Raghupati ke Dasa, Sadhara Raghupati ke Dasa. Mother, when I take Sri Rama's name, and as he's saying this, Hanuman grows. All of his childlike monkey characteristics vaporize, and you see him in his entire massive form, like a mountain that stands way above the treetops of the Ashokavana. There is blinding light, and when Sita sees him, she is transfixed. What? How did this occur? And Hanuman's words are so beautiful from Tulsidas ji. Mother, when I take the name of Sri Rama, when I take my mind and dissolve it into the name, all attributes become accessible to me. Size, speed, density, space and time are at his command, Lord Sri Rama's command. O great Devi, please let me rid you of the suffering by taking you with me to join Sri Rama. And at this point in time, Sita's first blessing occurs. O Yogeshwara, she exclaims, death will never touch you. And for all those who are hopeless, you will be the very embodiment of hope, faith, and transformation. I, however, don't want to come with you because it is appropriate that my Lord Sri Rama comes to Lanka and destroys the demon army and frees this entire awareness from this Lam Chakra with his shafts of light. Now, let me give you what has been with me since I met my beloved Sri Rama. Let me give you my beautiful crest jewel, the only piece of jewelry that's on Sita. And by the way, why the crest jewel? Because the crest jewel rests on the Agnya Chakra, the actual chakra where Rama Shakti resides. And here, you've given me a ring, let me give you this Therefore, we can be united in spirit now. Hanuman is beside himself. He says, Mother, I will proceed post haste to Lord Sri Ramachandra's side with your beautiful crest jewel. But first, I'm hungry. May I get your blessing to satiate myself with the fruits of karma in the Ashokas, in the Ashokavana. Hanuman eats all the fruits. He is confronted by Aksha and by Indrajit, Ravana's son. And being the master strategist that he is, he decides to submit. After killing Ravana's first son and destroying the garden, he decides to submit to Ravana's second son's arrow and meets Ravana in the court, in his own court. So this is Hanuman, who has been felled by the Brahmastra fully voluntarily. And this is what happens when you use this sadhana to face your fears, to face your anxiety. You actually come face to face with all of it, and you take Sri Rama's name. And so now I want you to go down to your coccyx, down to the base of your body, take all your sensations, say the word of Ram, and feel every single sense in you. Ravana ushers Hanuman into the court, completely bound. Well done, Indrajit, he claims. But father, I've lost the Brahmastra. Indrajit retorts, oh, don't worry about that. It is time for me to face the monkey who killed Aksha and who's laid waste to my garden, Ravana thunders. And the first question he asks, Monkey, by whose authority have you wrought destruction, and have you come to my place of residence and hijacked it? And now I want to go back to what Philip said. We're going to sing the biggest, longest sentence in the Ramayana. And this is Hanuman's retort. It is the essence of the Ramayana in one sentence.
Sunu Ravana Brahmanda Nikaya Aija Subala Virachata Maya Jage Bala Viranchi Hari Sa Alana Srijata Bharata Dasasi Sa Jabala Sisa Bharata Sahasananam Arda Ghosa Sameta Girikanana Dharai Jo Bihita Deha Surakrata Tumate Sathana Sikhavanudata Harako Danda Kathina Jehi Bhanja Ehi Sameta Nripadana Madagal Kharadushan Trisira Arupali Badhe Sakala Atulita Balasali Jage Bala Lavale Sate Jite Hucharachar Jhari Tasu Dhut Mein Jakari Hari Aane Hu Priya Nari Siyavar Ramachandra ki jai, Siyavar Ramachandra ki jai, Pavana Sutta Hanuman 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 ki jai.
I'm going to read the entire sentence because it's appropriate to conclude today's Sundarakanda with this sentence and the burning of Lanka. I represent him by whose might Maya brings forth numerous universes, by whose might Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh carry on their respective functions of creation, preservation and destruction, by whose might I represent him by whose might this blue planet with its mountains, its oceans, is supported by the 1,000-headed serpent Sesha. I represent him who assumes various forms in order to protect the gods and teach a lesson to wretches like you, Ravana. I represent him who destroyed Khara, Dushana, Trishira and Vali. I represent him by an iota whose energy and strength enabled you, Ravana, to conquer all that is animate and inanimate, and whose beloved Shakti, his spouse Vaidehi, has been stolen away by you. I am Anjaneya, envoy of the Lord of the Raghus. Javara Ramachandra ki jai, Hanuman ki jai. What follows is Ravana's ordering of Hanuman's tail to be burnt. In response to Vibhishana's telling Ravana that he can't slay an envoy, Vibhishana cries and he says, don't do anything to Hanuman. Ravana can't do anything to Hanuman even if he tries. Nevertheless, Vibhishana prevents him from getting slaughtered by Hanuman, and he suggests to Ravana that he take care of maiming Hanuman by lighting his tail on fire. All of the cloth in Lanka, all of flammable materials are brought, and Hanuman, as he grows his tail to the size of buildings and mountains, is wrapped up in oil and cloth. There's no cloth left in Lanka. There's no fuel. Look at Hanuman's strategy. What an amazing reconnaissance soldier. At every level, the jnana is so perfect. And what is he going to do? He's going to burn the Lam Chakra. He's going to burn Ravana's lair. He's going to remove the attachment that we have to survival and to fear and to sensory experience in one fell swoop. And what happens transforms Lanka and transforms us. And so we will conclude today with one more. We will from now on, last two dohas to conclude. Imagine Lanka on fire. Imagine all of your awareness in the Lam Chakra now rising with Hanuman as he fires up all of Lanka. And this is the verse from the Hanuman Bahuk that we are going to sing.
गोपद पयोधि करि होलिका ज्वलाई लंक निपटनि संत कर पुरगल भल भो रण सोबार लियो ख्यालयो कार्य कर कंद कजो कपि खेल मेल के सो बल को संकट समाज असमंजस घोरम राज काज जुग पूगनि को कर दल बल भो सास समर्थ तुलसी को नहीं चाहि बन लोक पाल पालन को फिर तेरे बल नाशे रोग हरे सब पीड़ा जपत निरंतर हनुमत वीर संकट से हनुमान छुड़ा मन क्रम वचन ध्यान जो लावे जय हनुमान अति बलवंत जय हनुमान अति बलवंत जय हनुमान अति बलवंत जय हनुमान अति बलवंत अति बलवंत अति बलवंत
Asabaradina Janaki Mata. Because of her boon, Hanuman's tail doesn't even get singed. Lanka is in flames. Now your awareness is ready. All the flames are destroying the attachment to sensory experience. Now, I want you to go back and recenter your awareness to your navel and come back to my words of my mentor. If you want anything to get done, pray to Hanuman. We will conclude today with the doha. I will say the doha, sing the doha, and then sing the Mangala Shloka. Hanuman comes back and he sees Sri Rama. And Sri Rama is beyond words. He's beyond mood. The energy of the universe, as you know, is inseparable from prana. But that's even for that moment when prana gives him news of the identified jiva being present. He breaks down and he says, "Oh Hanuman, oh Anjaneya, I have no benefactor like you among embodied beings, gods, humans, sages. What service can I do you in return? What can I give you in return?" As Sri Rama, "Before you, my mind can conceive of nothing." There is a very beautiful hint here. Hanuman is called Mahakala. He is Chiranjeevi. Why is he called Chiranjeevi? We say it so easily. He's always there. He will forever live. Because he is ultimately time and its seed. He is Shiva. He is Mahakala. In him, all times rests and expresses. So here is Hari, Lord Rama, who is the consciousness chit of the universe, paying ode to Mahakala. Sunu kapi to hi saman upakari. Sunu kapi to hi saman upakari. Nahi ko sur nar muni tanu dhari. Nahi ko sur nar muni tanu dhari. Kai zaman उपकार करो का तोरा प्रति उपकार करो का तोरा सन्मुख होई न सकत मन मोरा सन्मुख होई न सकत मन मोरा कवि रोए समान उपकारी सुनु कपि तो ही समान उपकारी. Vibhishana takes refuge at the feet of Sri Rama as he flies across the ocean, and that ends Sundarakanda. We will finish with the traditional Mangalam from the Rāmcaritmānas. इतनी बिनती रघुनंदन से भुकपन हमारा मिठाओ जी. इतनी बिनती रघुनंदन से भुकपन हमारा मिठाओ जी. अपने पद पंकज पिंजर में चित हंस हमारा बिठाओ जी. अपने पद पंकज पिंजर में चित हंस हमारा बिठाओ जी. तुलसीदास का कर जोड़ी भवसागर पार उतारो जी. तुलसीदास का कर जोड़ी भवसागर पार उतारो जी. इतनी बिनती रघुनंदन से दुख हमारा मिठाओ जी. इतनी बिनती रघुनंदन से दुख हमारा मिठाओ जी. भीमरूपी महारुद्रा वज्र हनुमान मारुति वनारे अंजनी सूता रामधूत प्रबंजना महाबली प्राणदाता सकरा उठवी बले सौख्यकारी दुःखहारी भूत वैष्णव गायका लोकनाथा जगन्नाथ प्राणनाथ पुरातना पुण्यवंता पुण्यशीला पावना परितोषका रामदासी अग्रगण्य कपिकुलासी मंदनु रामरूपी अंतरात्मा दर्शने दोषनाशति. रामरूपी अंतरात्मा दर्शने दोषनाशति. दर्शने दोषनाशति. दर्शने दोषनाशति. बोलो सियावर रामचंद्र की जय. पवन सुत हनुमान की जय. जय बजरंगबली की जय.
Thank you, Sita Didi.
Thank you.
Priya. Thank you, Philip ji.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vivek
Thanks to
Anna.
all of
Thank
you.
you,
Thank
Ravi
you.
Anna. Thank you, Mahintha, Chandramouli.
yeah.
Thank you, Shubha, for tuning the Bahuk shlokas.
Thanks
Thank
to
you
all
for this amazing satsanga in Hanumanji's
Jai Shri Ram.
amazing sannidhi. Jai Siya Ram, Jai Hanuman.
Okay. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the second night's. So tonight we're gonna do an abbreviated version, just because of the events that happened tonight. Beautiful, wonderful events. So just to keep the flow of the story, we're still gonna do the reading, just a shorter version. Enjoy, and let's start. Following their marriage, Ram and Sita lived a happy life in the kingdom of Ayodhya. The young Prince Ram and his brothers were the pride of the noble dynasty of King Dasharat. The whole population was happy in their heart of hearts, for they knew that in time the great and gracious king would pass the reins of the kingdom over to Ram, and thereby ensure a reign of righteousness and virtue that would bless the whole earth for centuries to come. One day, Dasharat called his ministers together along with his family priest, the great sage Vashishta, to tell them he had reached his decision. He had a feeling of joy and relief, but also a shadow of fear haunted his mind from some omens that had been reported to him. He uncharacteristically seemed preoccupied as he announced his decision to have Ram be coronated king. He was requesting a hasty process that did not permit all of the important family members to be present to share in the auspiciousness of such an occasion. No one dared to challenge his decision, though all could sense a certain near desperation in his manner. He sent for Ram and told him that he was to be crowned king the very next day. Ram loved his father and observed his wishes as holy law. He listened quietly and patiently to everything his father told him, and respectfully took his leave and went to tell Sita and his brother Lakshman the news. Like a breeze carrying a heady fragrance of blossoms through a meadow, the joyous news of Ram's coronation spread throughout the kingdom. Flocks of people thronged the streets in song and celebration, anticipating the fulfillment of a long-cherished dream. The time had finally come for the divine Prince Ram to become their king. Dasharat continued to be plagued by troubling omens, and he sent for Ram and warned him that his brother Bharat, though loyal, may object to the coronation and try to return and lay claim to the throne if he was influenced by some disaffected family members. He told Ram to spend the night in prayer and austerity in order to ward off potential misfortune. The troubling omens for Dasharat were coming together like multiple tributaries swelling a river in the rainy season. Dasharat had 3 wives, and he had once told his youngest wife, Kaikeyi, that one day her son Bharat would be king of Ayodhya. Kaikeyi loved Ram as her own son, and she felt nothing but joy in the thought that Ram would be made king instead of her son. But her maidservant was a wicked woman who saw nothing but suffering for her and her mistress should they lose this opportunity for seizing royal power. She convinced Queen Kaikeyi that Dasharat was deceitful and was giving the throne to Ram when it was really her son Bharat who was deserving. She filled the young queen's mind with fear that when Dasharat died, she would be nothing but a maidservant to Ram's family, exiled to a distant province with her son to live out a life of suffering and deprivation. Kaikeyi's maidservant reminded her that the king promised her 2 boons when she saved his life on the battlefield. Claim these boons, she commanded. Request that Ram be banished to the forest and your son Bharat be crowned king. They would then live the royal life that was their rightful destiny. As fate would have it, the young Queen Kaikeyi's mind was poisoned by the hateful words of her maidservant. When Dasharat came to see her that night, she drew the regal old man into her web and then coldly demanded her 2 boons. Her words struck deep like a sword into the old man's heart. Ram was his very life. If he was to be exiled to the forest, it would be his death. Kaikeyi forced her will on the dying old man, demanding that he tell Ram he was banished to the forest and that Bharat would be installed on the throne. Pleading with his queen to no avail, Dasharatha fell to the ground in a swoon. Unable to look at Ram, let alone speak with these dreaded commands, he lay crumpled on the floor while Kaikeyi related the news to Ram. Ram accepted this change with no show of emotion and immediately began to make ready to leave the palace for a life of a forest hermit. For him, it was paramount to honor the word of his father, even if the whole kingdom were to reject his banishment as sheer lunacy. The whole of Ayodhya was plunged into a sea of grief to learn that instead of being their king, Ram was living for 14 years in the forest, was to live 14 years in the forest. For Ram, it was all the will of God. In his heart, he was aware that a divine destiny was moving into his life, and it was beyond the control of anybody. Ram's brother Lakshman and wife Sita made clear their firm commitment to join him in this exile no matter what. After Ram, Sita, and Lakshman left for the forest, the king's life was fast ebbing away. Dasharatha lay for 5 days in a tortured state, absent the loving presence of his son Ram. Images and events of his life flowed through his mind in fitful dreams. He remembered his youth, a young prince, virtuous, strong, and intelligent, full of promise. He was gifted with archery and could hit his target guided only by sound. One night, he remembered, he went alone into the jungle to hunt, and after several hours, he found a pond. He waited at this pond, listening to the pre-dawn sounds of running water and to the breeze blowing the leaves at night. As he sat motionless, suddenly, the familiar sound of an animal drinking water reached his ears. His heart quickened as he listened for the direction, and then he gracefully pulled back his bow and unleashed an arrow into the darkness. A cry rent the night, and Dasharatha stood paralyzed with fear, recognizing that it was not the cry of an animal, but of a young boy. He ran to the side of the pond and found a young boy pierced through the heart with his arrow. Gasping for air and writhing in pain, he asked Dasharatha why he had shot him. He was a simple forest dweller and had no enemies in his life. He was living with his blind parents as their caretakers, and he told Dasharatha to take his water pot back to his parents and tell them what happened. Before going, he had to remove the arrow from the boy's body and end his terrible suffering. Dasharatha prayed for the young man's forgiveness, pulled the arrow from his heart, and witnessed the last gasp of breath leave his body. In a daze, Dasharatha filled the water pot and walked slowly along the bank of the pond, soon arriving at the small hermitage where the elderly blind couple were living a quiet life of renunciation and prayer. As he approached, he could hear them wondering why their son was taking so long in fetching the water. Soon they heard Dasharatha was near, and the boy's mother said, "Ah, my son, did you take time to swim in the pond or enjoy a bit of quiet time to yourself? We were beginning to worry." Dasharatha stood in silence, unable to put words to the tragedy that had just happened. Finally he said, "Revered sir, I am Dasharatha, a prince of this kingdom, and I have sworn to protect your family and all who live here. Instead, I have accidentally killed your son due to my ignorance and pride." May the gods forgive me for my great sin against you, and may I serve you in some way that may alleviate your suffering and unspeakable loss." The elderly couple clutched each other and cried out for God to help them with this terrible grief. They told Dasharat to take them to their son so they could once more touch his body and say their prayers for his peace. After carefully washing and praying over their son's body, the body was placed on a funeral pyre of wood. The elderly Brahmin told Dasharat that his error was one of ignorance and not malice, so he would not be punished in the hell realm. Instead, he would suffer the loss of a son in his old age, and that loss would cause him such deep suffering he would die. With this, they climbed on the funeral pyre with their son's body and left this world. Waking suddenly from this memory, the great king found himself alone in the cool black night. Separated from his sons, betrayed by his youngest queen, the broken old man surrendered his soul to the great mystery of the divine. Without an emperor, Ayodhya was like a great ship without a rudder. Ram's brother Bharat returned to find the gloomy kingdom reeling in confusion and anger from the chaotic events that culminated in Ram's banishment to the forest and the death of his father Dasharat. Bharat was appalled to learn of the deceitful wrangling of his mother to make him the king. He swore his allegiance to Ram as their only heir to the throne and vowed to bring him back to serve his people. Bharat's resolve was like a bomb on the aching hearts of the people of Ayodhya. With renewed hope, they rallied around Bharat as he made his plans for restoring order to the kingdom. Meanwhile, Ram, Sita, and Lakshman went deeper into the vast, wild forest to meet their destiny. Bharat was not able to dissuade Ram from living out his 14 years of forest exile. Ram accepted it as his holy vow, and Bharat understood that his dharma was to serve in Ram's place as the emperor of Ayodhya. With Ram's sandals placed on the throne, Bharat removed himself to the outskirts of the city and lived as an ascetic, ruling the kingdom from his lonely jungle retreat, awaiting the return of Ram. And that's all we have for this reading. Thank you very, very much for joining us. I think we're going to move into arati next, so thank you very much.
Jai Shri Hanuman Ji ki Jai. Pavan Sutta Hanuman ki Jai. Umapati Mahadev ki Jai. Ravapati Rāmchandra ki Jai. Om. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namah. Om Shri Gurave Namah. Om Shri Sita Ramaya Namah. Om Shri Hanumate Namah. Om Sumukhascha Ekadantascha Kapilo Gachakaranaka Lambodrascha Vikato Vignanascha Vinayakaha Dhumraketur Ganadhyaksho Bhalachandra Gajananaha Dvadashaitani Namani Yahapate Trunyadapi Vidyarambe Vivahe Cha Praveshe Nirgame Tata Sangrame Sankate Chaiva Vignastasya Najayate Vignabali Kutadaya Shri Ganadi Pataye Namaha Vakratun Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Avignam Kurame Deva Sarvakareshu Sarvada Shuklam Varadharam Vishnum Shashivaranam Chaturbhujam Prasanna Vadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vigno Pushantaye Labhaste Sham Jayaste Sham Kutaste Sham Parajaya Yesham Indi Varashamo Hridasto Janardana. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namah. Om Gandham Samarpayami Shri Hanumate Namah. Om Pavanatanaye Sankataharana Mangalamurati Rupa Ramalakana Sita Sayata Hridaya Basam Surabhupa Siyavara Rāmchandra ki Jai. Pavan Sutta Hanuman ki Jai. Umapati Mahadeva ki Jai. Om Deepam Samarpayami Shri Hanumate Namaha. Om Dhupam Samarpayami Shri Hanumate Namaha. Om Atulita Baladhamam Hem Shailabadeham Danujavan Krishanum Gyani Namagraganyam Sakala Guna Nidhanam Vanaranam Desham Raghupati Priya Bhaktam Vata Jatam Namami. Om Shri Hanumate Namaha. Om Deepam Samarpayami Shri Hanumate Namaha. Om Manojavang Marutatuya Vegang Jitendriyam Buddhimatang Varishtam Vatatmajam Vanaryuttamukyam Shri Ramadutam Shirasa Namami. Ulangya Sindho Salilam Salilam Yashokavahinam Janakatmajaya Adayate Naiva Dadahalanka Namamitam Pranjaliranjanayam. Shri Hanumate Namaha. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Gananantva Ganapati Gungavamahe. Priyanantva Priyapati Gungavamahe. Nidhinantva Nidhipati Gungavamahe. Vasso Mama Aham Jani Garbhadham Atmamajasi Garbhadham Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Gurudeva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Shri Sita Ramaya Namaha. Om Ramaya Rambhadraya Ramachandraya Vedase Raghunathaya Nathaya Sitaya Pataye Namaha. Om Ramaya Rambhadraya Ramachandraya Vedase Raghunathaya Nathaya Sitaya Pataye Namaha. Om Ramaya Rambhadraya Ramachandraya Vedase Raghunathaya Nathaya Sitaya Pataye Namaha. Om Ramaya Rambhadraya Ramachandraya Vedase Raghunathaya Nathaya Sitaya Pataye Namaha. Om Shri Sita Ramaya Namaha. Om Anjaneyaya Vidmahe Mahabalaya Dhimahi Tanno Hanuman Prachodayat. Om Anjaneyaya Vidmahe Mahabalaya Dhimahi Tanno Hanuman Prachodayat. Om Anjaneyaya Vidmahe Mahabalaya Dhimahi Tanno Hanuman Prachodayat. Om Shri Hanumate Namaha. Om Jai 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 Shri Hanuman Ji Ki Jai. Pavana Sutta Hanuman Ki Jai. Om Shri Hanumate Namaha. Om Pushpam Samarpayami Shri Hanumate Namaha. Om Bhavanatanaye Sankata Harana Mangalamurati Rupa Ramalakana Sita Saitara Daibasavasura Bhupa Siyavara Rāmcandra Ki Jai. Pavana Sutta Hanuman Ki Jai. Umapati Mahadeva Ki Jai. Ramapati Rāmcandra Ki Jai. Sab Santon Ki Jai. Sab Bhakton Ki Jai. Sab Gurudevon Ki Jai. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Ganganapataye Namaha. Om Ganganapataye Namaha. Om Ganganapataye Namaha. Om Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Namami Shamishana Nirvana Rupam Vibhum Vyapakam Brahmadeva Swarupam Ajam Nirgunam Nirvikalpam Niriham Chidakaram Akashavasam Bhajeham. Om Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Shri Sita Ramaya Namaha. Om Shantakaram Bhujagashayanam Padmanabham Suresham Vishwadharam Gagana Sadrisham Meghavarnam Shubhangam Lakshmi Kantam Kamalanayanam Yoga Birdhyanagamyam Vande Vishnu Baba Bhayaram Sarvalokaikanatam. Om Shri Sita Ramaya Namaha. Shri Hanumate Namaha. Om Naivedyam Samarpayami. Shri Hanumate Namaha. Om Pranay Swaha, Apanay Swaha, Vyanay Swaha, Udanay Swaha, Samanay Swaha. Om Shri Hanumate Namaha. Om Phalam Samarpayami. Om Jalam Samarpayami. Shri Hanumate Namaha. Om. 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 Shri Hanumate Namaha. Jai Hanuman Ji ki Jai. Ki Jai Hanuman Lilla ki, Dushta Dalan Raghunath Kala ki, Arati ki Jai Hanuman Lilla ki, Dushta Dalan Raghunath Kala ki, Arati ki Jai Hanuman Lalla ki.
जाके मन से गिरिवर कांपे, जाके मन से गिरिवर कांपे, रोग दोष जाके निकटन जाके, रोग दोष जाके निकटन जाके, अंजनी पुत्र महाबलदाई, संतन के प्रभु सदा सहाई, आरती की जय हनुमान लल्ला की, दुष्ट दलन रघुनाथ कला की, आरती की जय हनुमान लल्ला की। हे वीरा रघुनाथ पताए, हे वीरा रघुनाथ पताए, लंका जारी सिया सुदिलाए, लंका जारी सिया सुदिलाए, लंका सपोट समुद्र सिकाए, जत पवन सुत बारन लाए, आरती की जय हनुमान लल्ला की, दुष्ट दमन रघुनाथ कला की, आरती की जय हनुमान लल्ला की। लंका जारी असुर सब मारे, लंका जारी असुर सब मारे, सीता राम जी के काज
त्र्यंबकं यजामहे सुगंधिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव वन्दनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात् ॐ त्र्यंबकं यजामहे सुगंधिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव वन्दनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात् ॐ त्र्यंबकं यजामहे सुगंधिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव वन्दनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात् ओम शांति शांति शांति। जय शिव शंभो, जय श्री माता, जय 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 श्री सीता रामाय नमः, जय 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 श्री माता, जय श्री हनुमते नमः, जय शिव शंभो, जय श्री माता। गुरु ब्रह्मा गुरु विष्णु गुरु देवो महेश्वर गुरुरेव परम ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। गुरुदेव महेश्वर गुरुरेव परम ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। ओम गुरु ब्रह्मा गुरु विष्णु गुरुदेवो महेश्वर गुरुरेव परम ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। जय जय जय। ओम उच्चैस्तमस्तैस्तु यन्मय पूजनं कृतं तत्सर्वपूर्णतं यातु हि अपराधं क्षमस्व मे। जय श्री हनुमान जी की जय, पवन सुत हनुमान की जय।
विभक्षियोतवती लोक भयो अंधियारो ताहि सोत्रास भयो जग कोया संकट काहू सो जातन तारो जीवन आनि करी विनती तब स्वामी दियो रवि कष्ट निवारो को नहीं जानत है जग में कपि संकट मोचन नाम निहारो भावी की त्रास कपि सब गिरी जात महाप्रभु पंत निहारो कपि महामुनि साप दियो तब चाहिए कौन विचार विचारो द्विजरु परिवाय महाप्रभु तो तुम दास के शोक निवारो को नहीं जानता है जग में कपि संकट मोचन नाम तिहारो संकट मोचन नाम तिहारो अंगर के संग लेन गाय सिंह जग के जय भैना उचारो जीवत नाभ जिहाओ हम सोचुगी नाम दिलाए गिरा पगुधारो मेरी तके सत सिंधु सबे तब लाय सिया सुधि प्राण उबारो को नहीं जानता है जग में कपि संकट मोचन नाम तिहारो संकट मोचन नाम तिहारो अवन त्रास दाई सिया को सब राक्षसी शोक ही शोक निवारो ताहि समय हनुमान महाप्रभु जय महाराजनी चार मारो चाहत सिया शोक सो आदि सुधे प्रभु मुद्रिक शोक निवारो को नहीं जानता है जग में कपि संकट मोचन नाम तिहारो संकट मोचन नाम तिहारो मान लग्यो और लक्ष्मण के तब प्राण तजे सुत रावण मारो गृह वैद्य सुषेण समेत
संजीवनाथ नहीं तब लक्ष्मण के तुम प्राण उबारो। को नहीं जानता है जग में कभी संकट मोचन नाम तिहारो। संकट मोचन नाम तिहारो। रावण द्युता जानकी हो तब नाग के पास समय सिर दारो। श्री रघुनाथ समेत सब दल मोह भयो या संकट भारो। अनिक देश तबे हनुमान जो बंधन काटी त्रास निवारो। को नहीं जानता है जग में कभी संकट मोचन नाम तिहारो। संकट मोचन नाम तिहारो। बंधु समेत जब आही रावण लय रघुनाथ पताल सिधारो। देवी पूजी भरी विधि सो भरी देव सभे मिले मंत्र विचारो। आय सहाय भयो तब ही आही रावण सैन्य समेत संहारो। को नहीं जानता है जग में कभी संकट मोचन नाम तिहारो। संकट मोचन नाम तिहारो। काचकी वर देवन के तुम वीरा महाप्रभु की विचारो। कौन सो संकट मोर गरीब को जो तुम सो नहीं जाता है तारो। देखी हरो हनुमान महाप्रभु जो कछु संकट हो या हमारो। को नहीं जानता है जग में कभी संकट मोचन नाम तिहारो। संकट मोचन नाम तिहारो। संकट मोचन नाम तिहारो। लाल देह लील से अरुधरि लाल लमोद। वज्र देह दान बदलन जय 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 कपीसूर। जय 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 श्री हनुमान जी की जय। सरोज रज निज मन मुकुर सुधारि। वरनो रघुबर विमल जसो जो दायक बल चारि। बुद्धिहीन तनु जानिके सुमिरौ पवन कुमार। बल बुद्धि विद्या देहु मोहि करहु करे सभिकार। जय हनुमान ज्ञान गुण सागर। जय कपीस तिहु लोक उजागर। रामदूत तुलित बल धाम। अंजनी पुत्र पवन सुत नाम। महावीर विक्रम बजरंगी। सुमत निवार सुमति के संगी। कांचन वरण विराज सुरेश। कानन कुंडल कुंचित केश। हाथ वज्र और ध्वजा विराज। कांधे मुंज जनेऊ साज। शंकर सुमन केशरी नंदन। तेज प्रताप महाजगबंदन। विद्यावान गुणी अति चातुर। राम काज करिबे को आतुर। प्रभु चरित्र सुनिबे को रसिया। राम लखन सीता मन बसिया। सूक्ष्म रूप धरि सियहि दिखावा। विकट रूप धरि लंक जरावा। भीम रूप धरि असुर संहारे। रामचंद्र के काज सवारे। लाय संजीवन लखन जियाए। श्री रघुवीर हरषि उर लाए। रघुपति कीन्ही बहुत बड़ाई। तुम मम
तुलसी को विद गाई सकै कहाते तुम उपकार सुग्रीव ही कीना राम मिलाय राज पर दीना तुम्हारो मंत्र विभीषण माना लंकेश्वर भय सब जग जाना युग सहस्र योजन पर भानु लील्योताहि मधुर फल जानु प्रभु मुद्रिका मेरे मुख माहि जल दिलांगी गाय अचरज नाहि पूर्णम काज जगत के जेते तम अनुग्रह तुमरे देते राम दुआरे तुम रखवारे होतन आज्ञा बिनु मैं सारे सब सुख लाए तुम्हारी शरणा तुम रक्षक काहू को डरना आपन तेज सम्हारो आपे तीनों लोग हंसते कापे भूत पिशाच निकट नहीं भावे महावीर जब नाम सुनावे नासै रोग हरे सब पीरा जपत निरंतर हनुमत वीरा संगत से हनुमान चुरावे मन क्रम वचन ज्ञान जो लावे सब पर राम तपस्वी राजा इनके काज सकल तुम साजा और मनोरथ जो कोई लावे सोई अमित जीवन पर पावे कारुण्य प्रताप तुम्हारा मैं पर सिद्ध जगत उजियारा साधु संत के तुम रखवारे असुर निकंदन राम दुलारे अष्ट सिद्धि नवनिधि के दाता असबर दीन जानकी माता राम रसायन तुम्हारे पासा सदा रहो रघुपति के दासा तुम्हारे वचन राम को पावे जन्म जन्म के दुख बिसरावे अंत काल रघुपति पुर जाई जहाँ जन्म हरि वाक्य कहाई और देवता चित्तन धरहि हनुमत से सर्व सुख करहि संकट कटे मिटे सब पीरा जो सुमिरे हनुमत बलबीरा जय 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 हनुमान गोसाई कृपा करहु गुरुदेव की नाई जय 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 हनुमान गोसाई कृपा करहु गुरुदेव की नाई शत बार पाठ कर कोई झूठ ही बंदी महासुख होई जो यह पर हनुमान चालीसा होय सिद्धि साखी गौरीशा तुलसीदास सदा हरि चेरा की जय नाथ हृदय मंदिरा पवन तनय संकट हरण मंगल मूर्ति रूप राम लखन सीता सहिता हृदय बसहु सुरभूप सियावर रामचंद्र की जय पवन सुत हनुमान की जय उमापति महादेव की जय रमापति रामचंद्र की जय सब संतों की जय सब भक्तों की जय सब गुरुदेवों की जय 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 सीताराम। श्री रामचंद्राष्टकम। चिताकारो दाता परम सुखदा पावन तन पिता सदा सैर्यापूर्णो जनकतनयङ्गा सुरगुरु रमानातो रामो रमतु मम चित्ते सततं मुकुन्दो गोविन्दो जनकतनया लालितपदा पदं प्राप्ता यस्य दमकुलभवच्चापि शबरी हिरातीतो गम्यो विमलदिशनिर्वेदवचसा रमानातो रामो रमतु मम चित्ते सततम् रघुपति किरीटी केयूरी कनककपिशा शोभितवपु समासीना पीठे रविशतनिभिश्रान्तमनसो रमानातो रामो रमतु मम चित्ते सततम् वरेण्यशारण्य कपिपतिसकश्चान्दविदुरो ललाटे काश्मीरो रुचिरगतिभङ्गा शशिमुखः नराकारो रामो यतिपतितनु संस्मृतिहरो रमानातो रामो रमतु मम चित्ते सततम् विरूपाक्षकाशमुपदिशति यन्नाम शिवदम् सहस्रं यन्नाम्नां पतति गिरिजात्रात्युषसि वै स्वलोके गायन्तीश्वरविधिमुखा यस्य चरितम् रमानातो रामो रमतु मम चित्ते सततम् परो धीरो धीरो सुरकुलभवश्च सुरहरा परात्मा सर्वज्ञो नरसुरगणकीर्तसुयशा अहल्या शापग्नं शरकररिजुकौशिकसको रमानातो रामो रमतु मम चित्ते सततम् ऋषिकेश शौरी धरणिधर शायी मधुरिपु भूपेन्द्रो वैकुण्ठो गजरिपुधरस्तुष्टमनसा बलिध्वंसी वीरो दशरथसुतो नीतिनिपुणो रमानातो रामो रमतु मम चित्ते सततम् कवि सौमित्रीड्य कपतमिकगाति वनचरो रणाश्वगीतान्तो धरनिभरहर्ता सुरनुतः अमानिमानज्ञो निखिलजनपूज्यो हृदिशयो रमानातो रामो रमतु मम चित्ते सततम् रमानातो रामो रमतु मम चित्ते सततम् रमानातो रामो रमतु मम चित्ते सततम् Jai 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 Shri Ramchandra Ki Jai. In 11 repetitions, Mahamrityunjay mantra, keeping awareness in the heart, offering prayers for healing, well-being, physical, mental, spiritual, for all that we want to extend that to. Om Haum Jum Sah Om Bhurabhuvah Swaha Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyamamritan Swaha Bhuvah Bhuv Om Sah Jum Haum Om Om Haum Jum Sah Om Bhurabhuvah Swaha Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityormukshiyamamritat Swaha Bhuvah Bhuv Om Sah Jum Haum Om Haum Jum Sah Om Bhurabhuvah Swaha Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityormukshiyamamritat Swaha Bhuvah Bhuv Om Sah Jum Haum Om Haum Jum Sah Om Bhurabhuvah Swaha Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityormukshiyamamritat Swaha Bhuvah Bhuv Om Sah Jum Haum Om Haum Jum Sah Om Bhurabhuvah Swaha Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityormukshiyamamritat Swaha Bhuvah Bhuv Om Sah Jum Haum Om Haum Jum Sah Om Bhurabhuvah Swaha Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityormukshiyamamritat Swaha Bhuvah Bhuv Om Sah Jum Haum Om Haum Jum Sah Om Bhurabhuvah Swaha Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityormukshiyamamritat Swaha Bhuvah Bhuv Om Sah Jum Haum Om Haum Jum Sah Om Bhurabhuvah Swaha Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityormukshiyamamritat Swaha Bhuvah Bhuv Om Sah Jum Haum Om Haum Jum Sah Om Bhurabhuvah Swaha Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityormukshiyamamritat Swaha Bhuvah Bhuv Om Sah Jum Haum Om Haum Jum Sah Om Bhurabhuvah Swaha Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanam Mrityormukshiyamamritat Jyotirmukshiyamamritat Swaha Bhuvah Bhuh Om Sah Jung Haum Om Om Haum Jung Sah Om Bhurбhuvah Swaha Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Vandanam Mrityormukshiyamamritat Swaha Bhuvah Bhuh Om Sah Jung Haum Om. We'll offer the tilak prayer that we do when people come for darshan at the end of arati to the temple door. So I'll go to there and chant the Swasti Vachan mantras. So, and that will be your personal time for darshan with Hanumanji and tilak, and that will close our evening program and the full day program. So. Atvamajasi garbhadham Om swastina indro vridhashava swastina pusha vishwavedaha swastina staraksho arishtanemihi swastino brihaspati dadatu Om payah pratibhyam payoshadishu payodevyanta rikshan payodah Payasvati pradisha santumayam Om Vishnu Raratramassi Vishnu Shnaptresto Vishnu Syurasi Vishnu Dhruvosi Vaishnavamassi Vishnavedva Om Agnir Devata Vato Devata Suryo Devata Chandrama Devata Vasavo Devata Rudro Devata Aditya Devata Marto Devata Om Vishwani Deva Savitar Duritani Parasuva Yadbadram Tanna Asuva Om Tat Sat Gurve Swaha Jai Sitaram Jai Hanuman Shubha Ratri